I'm Anne. I'm a volunteer at the Foundling, and the object I've chosen is the portrait of Beatrice Forbes. She was one of the first female governors of the hospital. She chose to leave her portrait to the hospital to mark the fact that there'd been a female governor of the hospital, which I think was a good feminist thing to do. The first female governor was in 1921, so the Foundling had been in existence for a very long time by then, so it was a long time until there were any female governors. There were only 5 in the history of the hospital altogether, which compared with the number of male governors that must have gone through in that time is tiny, tiny amounts. So we should celebrate them. The hospital wouldn't have existed without those original ladies of quality and distinction supporting Thomas Coram's bid to establish it. So this is coming full circle in a way, that eventually by the 20th century there were actually some female governors of the hospital. In a way, the women are bookending the beginning and the end of the history of the hospital, which I think is great. Immediately, as soon as I saw the portrait, I was really drawn to her. She looks very intelligent but very compassionate. Her dress is quite plain, down to earth. She doesn't have lots of jewellery on, just a plain gold band and a ring on her finger. And I just sort of felt that I would have liked her. She looked like my kind of person. She didn't actually become a governor until she was 70, so it was quite late on in life. Her father had been a treasurer of the Foundling Hospital. So Beatrice sort of grew up with the Foundling Hospital as part of her life. She was there on site, so she would be observing it all the time. And then she was married quite late in life, not until she was 40, and she was married in the Foundling Chapel. Her husband then became a governor of the hospital, but it wasn't until after he died and she was left a widow when she was just 60. And it was a bit after that before she herself became a governor. So she was following in that line. And I was widowed myself at a young age as well. So I sort of identify with her story and wanting to do something useful and forging a life for herself as well after her husband had died, in a way. She had another woman living with her at that time as a companion, presumably, and most of her legacies in her will are to female friends and so on. So she obviously built up lots of female friendships, particularly after her husband died, which I've done, and that's been an important part of my life. And some of those friends are, fellow volunteers at the Foundling. So I'm very glad the portrait is there. And I'm glad that it's now hanging in the portrait gallery, which it wasn't before the exhibition of the Ladies of Quality and Distinction. And Beatrice Forbes is one of the ones who remains now in the portrait gallery. And I think it's right and important that she has that place now to tell that aspect of the history of the hospital. Her feminism, really, that I'm attracted to, really, and although there's no record of her having been a suffragist or a suffragette, she was part of that sort of generation, really, when women were taking a much bigger role in society and in the running of institutions and so on, and able to come out from the home and start making a contribution in that way. It probably took quite a bit of strength to do that.